With us into the weekend. It's also going to remain rather windy, but at least with the winds blowing from the west to the southwest, well, as you can see, temperatures in the south today getting up to 13 or 14 Celsius, which is what, 56, 57 degrees Fahrenheit. But a little bit of a problem as we head towards the end of this week, because we think those winds are going to get particularly strong across northern parts of the British Isles. And you can see this great mass of arrows moving up towards Scotland. The reason, this little area of low pressure. Now that Atlantic low is likely to deepen quite considerably as it moves in, and it could bring some very strong winds indeed to the north of the British Isles, particularly northern Scotland. We think winds there could well touch storm force during Friday. Now, southwesterly winds are taking that milder air right in across Europe, tending to push the real wintry weather back in towards Russia. So as far as today's concerned, we're expecting some snowfall in Budapest, across into Kiev and also north towards Moscow. Whereas as you come back to the west into the milder air, well, we've got a lot of cloud heading southwards across the British Isles. It's producing some precipitation, but because it's mild air, that is falling as rain. And you can see we've had some quite heavy rain during the morning, moving southwards, a fairly coherent band. It'll continue to move erratically southwards through the rest of the day, probably not getting into the southeast of England until after dark. But overnight tonight, we could have some heavy bursts moving through on a strengthening wind. Clearer skies further north, perhaps a rumble of thunder in the far north of Scotland, but temperatures down to a chilly 4 degrees up in the Highlands. This is the weather front that's moving southwards at the moment. It should clear away during tomorrow, taking its rain out into the Channel. Brighter skies coming along behind, and a mixture of sunshine and showers once again up in Scotland. Perhaps a bit of snow right on top of the Scottish mountains. Then on Friday, that low bringing its really strong winds with it. Remember, we think they could be touching storm force across the north of Scotland, but as ever, we'll keep you updated on developments. And then another one arrives for the weekend. That's going to leave its weather fronts trailing across northern and western parts of the British Isles. So it looks as though we'll have a bright enough start to the weekend, although as Saturday progresses, we'll find cloud and rain coming in off the Atlantic. And then for Sunday, perhaps some heavy bursts of rain across northern and western parts of the British Isles. A lot of cloud around, fairly windy conditions, but a bit of brightness breaking through, particularly to the east of any high ground. And that's the forecast.